Welcome back to Allison Customs Project Car TV, back on Regan's 57 Chevy. And with this up on my 18-inch body lift, I have plenty of room, you know, even with the tires on. So I think I could straighten this dent out. Then there's a pretty good dent right here that we'll need to do some work on. Somebody has worked on it previously, but I think we can do a little bit more work and we can get to part of it on the inside. It's going to be a little more tricky. Probably going to be kind of standing on a ladder, hanging over in the window and trying to, but we got to lower the panel down, so we need a dolly on the back side. And that'll let us bring up some lows as well. My project is to get this side of the car done, which means we're going to do a rocker panel. Figure out this quarter panel. We got to get the door set. Next up, we just need to go ahead and get this bar cut out of the way so that we can get the door in here. Get the jam set over on this end. Probably do a little grinding right here and pull out a little bit of this dent right here. And maybe a little bit right here. I hadn't even seen it. There's a little dent right here as well. So with this door finally in place, which took about 45 minutes of just fidgeting with it and getting the hinges just right, and then I just welded this little tab on here so I could hold the door flush to the quarter panel. And I don't have a latch or anything with it, so it is just a way to make sure the door stays flush, and that way when I start messing with the quarter panel or I'm playing with the rocker panel, I can bring the door back to the same place every time. So with that done, the gap's as good as it's going to get, and it's like I'd love to shift the door forward about 1/8 of an inch, maybe even just a 1/16. But as soon as I do that, it hits up here on the A-pillar, so it's just that's as close as it gets. And you know, I could spend quite a bit of time. I could either open this gap up, or probably what I would do is shift the door forward and then open up the gap up here on the A-pillar and just re-weld the A-pillar part of the door. But like I said before, the owner's wanting to keep this very basic, just get rid of all the rust and get him a good, something he can take to a body shop and they can take and give him a nice looking car with pretty good gaps. It's got about 1/8 of an inch gap here, which is actually, you know, it's nice. It's a good straight line, but it's a little tight for most cars. We've got about 3/16 of an inch on the bottom of the door. We've got a nice gap up here at the top that kind of matches it. So essentially where we're at now is it's time to go ahead and cut this rocker panel out, and it'll take a little bit. We got to cut all the tabs and everything out, but it's already, you know, we never welded it to the floor, so all we've got to do is both ends, and then we should be able to clean everything up, put some maybe some rust reformer paint in there or some weld through primer, and that'll give us a good finish to go back to with the new the new rocker panel. So As you can see, I've had to trim off both ends a little bit. You just kind of got to keep fitting it, trimming, fitting, trimming. I also think this rocker panel is probably about an 1/8 inch wider than the original, just comparing the different sections that I cut out. I don't think it'll matter in the end because we'll get everything lined up, and you know, the door will get a skim coat of filler. It'll look fine. But you know, if it bothered you, or if it was something you wanted to worry about, it wouldn't be too big a deal to come in and cut the rocker all the way down the length. You know, the blade's a 1/16 of an inch, so you could do a fairly wide cut along there and then just shove it back in and weld it. And if it looks real bad when I get done, that's exactly what I'll do. I'll cut it on this outside part so that it comes in. And it might actually be right up here in this top rib that the width is. So, but we could cut it and make it look better. So I'm gonna do a little more fitting here and get some more clamps on it, and then we'll probably burn in 1 or 2 of the tack welds to hold it in place so we can close the door once or twice and see how it all fits. Okay, so I've got the inside seam in here. This lip is welded in, and I just went flush with the floor with the top of that seal, and that seemed to bring everything up to a pretty good height. Then we need to set the outside shape. So what we're going to do is close the door, and we'll latch it back in place where we had it. So with the door closed, we can work on this gap. Now, what I'm finding with this particular car is that if I get one end, the other end is way down, or if I get this end up to the right height, this end shoves way up into it. So what we're going to do is just work from the middle out. We're going to get the gap right here in the middle of the door, roughly. We'll get a weld on here, and then we'll go each side of it, and we'll just work the rocker panel. And I think this is just probably a cheap Chinese stamping. It was a little too long. It's definitely a little bit too wide, but I think we're going to be able to kind of manipulate it all into the right place, because as I work any one corner, it kind of all comes together. So I'm just going to we got a nice gap here in the middle now, so I'll get a weld on the back side, and then probably try and get 2 pinch welds done there, and then I'll come back and we'll move the board, and with a couple here holding it solid, we'll work the back side and then the front side, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter. So it's just a matter of looking at it, getting it where you're happy with the shape. So it looks real good from about here to here. So we'll find 2 or 3 pinch welds in there that we can use. And I've just been tightening up the pinch weld with a hammer and dolly, and then I have what used to be like a 3/16 inch drill bit that broke off, and I've just ground it flat so that I can stick in those holes that I punched for the spot welds. And I just run it in there. It clears the the epoxy paint off the backside so I can burn through with a welder and I don't have to actually burn through the paint. We're going to weld up this seam up here, come back and hammer form this one a little bit. We're only going to do the top side of this because a lot of this is going to get replaced when we do the panel, so just kind of beat it out of the way. We can clean up this pretty well. Mostly what this is about is getting the door hung and getting the gap right against the quarter panel, and then working the rocker panel in and getting the angles, you know, getting the gap right along the bottom of the door. Basically, you're going to weld up your pinch weld up here first, and then you're going to push down on or lift up on the rocker panel to meet the bottom of the door gap and get a nice gap all the way across. And then at the very end, I had to come back and trim out just a little wedge, really just about two widths of the death wheel blade, which is, these are 16th inch blades, so not quite 1/8 of an inch at the front up here, and slice it back just so I could let that close down a little bit more and get the gap right at the front. I believe this rocker panel had a little upturn at the end, so we still got to grind the welds and stuff, but we'll kind of get to that. Most of them are not going to be accessible with the door on. But now we have a nice gap across the bottom, nice gap over here on the quarter panel. Hope you found it informative or helpful, and we'll see you again next time on Allison Customs.